Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Flagged Off podcast. My name is Nirushan and I'm joined by Vinod. How are you, VK?
Good, buddy. Good. Went for my regular fitness work in the morning, so I'm a little fresh today.
That's great. That's great. You're doing more than what most people are actually doing right now. Keeping fit, staying healthy, which is
Thank
good.
you for the kind
I hope.
words.
All right. Now, going to our episode for today. The agenda for today's episode is to review the top four clash between Tottenham Hotspurs and Chelsea in the upcoming game week.
Okay.
VK and I will be creating a combined 11, and then we'll move on to discussing key player battles that we believe could influence the game. Finally, we'll round up the episode by reviewing the clash between the two dark horses for the season, which is West Ham versus Aston Villa. So before we get on with the lineup, VK, I want to know what are your thoughts on the season now that nearly a quarter of the matches have been completed.
See, so basically, I so far am a little unhappy with the season considering where United are, but let's leave that out. I'd like to talk about two teams who have actually surprised us with their performance so far this time. And the first one I have to say is Aston Villa, because last year I think they were they stayed up in the Premier League on the last day with a result on another fixture which had to go in their favor. And we all knew that Grealish would stay because they were in the Premier League, and I was surprised that nobody went for them. And Villa have been great, okay? No doubt they've been doing well. So that is one club which has really, really surprised me when I expected them to be at the relegation battle from day one. And the other team, which I really, really think that really deserves a mention at this moment, is Saints. Southampton have been unbelievable, dude. I would have easily picked them as one of the easiest or cleanest teams to be relegated without any doubt. And here they are at the top of the table and they're getting results. They're not just in the top thing, they're getting results. And everybody is talking about Westergaard over there and how he is doing well and supporting them. So these are the two teams I think that deserve a mention at this point. And just to finish off with one team that has disappointed, I have to say it's Leeds, man. We've built up Leeds on our podcast for quite a while, the first 3 weeks or so, and they cannot get results. And I believe at the moment they're 14th or 15th, and they've had 3 or 4 losses in the last 5 games. So I really have no words to say about Leeds, and that's my thoughts on the season so far. But what are the teams that you think have done well or not have done well as per expectations?
For me, let's start off with a disappointment. For me, the disappointment is, as usual, Arsenal. I don't think I need to state. I don't think I need to make any arguments in favor of why I've taken Arsenal.
Okay.
And the other team that disappointed me very much is Sheffield. Like
Yeah.
last year, Sheffield, even though you could beat them, they were not a easy team to beat. But now they are the opposite of what they were last year. It's very easy to beat them. You're getting results. But I don't know what's gone wrong with Sheffield. I just hope Chris Wilder can turn it around. And now coming to the teams that impressed me, the one team that impressed me was the first team was West Ham. West Ham seemed to be playing a bit better, like a lot, not a bit, a lot better than what you would expect from them. And hats off to David Moyes and the backroom staff, and as well as the players as well. And the other team that impressed me, which will go against what you have said, is actually it's Leeds.
Oh.
So Leeds, the reason why I like Leeds is they're not afraid to play or they're not afraid to stick to the style irrespective of the opponent, and that's something that I have to appreciate. That was a smaller club, a so-called smaller club. Usually when you have smaller clubs going up against bigger opponents, they'll change formation, they'll get more compact, they'll get more defensive, but Leeds are not afraid to express themselves. And that again is to do with Bielsa's philosophy, and I'm impressed with the way they play. Of course, results are not coming their way, but the way they are playing, I think it is more sustainable for them in the long run.
Okay.
All right.
But one small thing which you said, yes, Leeds have been playing well and all that is true. But even if you remember Liverpool, prior to the last 2 seasons where they won the Champions League and the Premier League, they were actually playing well with the Klopp philosophy ever since he came in. But it did not count unless they won. So that's the problem with the league or football today or any sport, that you can be as glamorous or great, what do you say, flamboyant or graceful or any way. But if you don't get the results at the end of the day, nobody is
true.
going to remember you. That's the unfortunate thing.
Yeah, true. You need success. You need a trophy. You need a title to actually cement yourself. Right. All right. Now getting on with our episode. First up, we have the combined 11. Over the last three games, Spurs have preferred the 4-2-3-1 formation, while Chelsea have preferred the 4-3-3.
3-3.
For the purpose of this episode and our Warmer's mutual love for Mourinho, we'll be utilizing the 4-2-3-1 formation. You'll get the first pick, and we'll keep rotating the positions as we go on. All right.
Okay, fine. So coming in, so I think we'll have to name it as the combined 11 of Chelsea versus Spurs.
Yeah, you can just put it as combined 11. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, to start off with the goalkeeper, I'm going to pick Mendy over Lloris. And the reason for this is because Lloris has not made any mistakes, nor has he had to make great saves. But whereas the 4 games or 3 games after which Mendy came in, he's now been able to get clean sheets for Chelsea. And maybe he's also helped them by not leaking a goal and then putting pressure on the squad as per the game plan. So that's the reason why I'm going to go with Mendy here.
For me at left back, I would go for Reguilon.
Okay.
Because I believe in comparison to Chilwell, I believe Reguilon is a more rounded player who has like a good balance between attack and defense.
Okay. And I actually, okay, we'll get back to that at the end. For the centre-back pairing, we all know how bad Chelsea's defense have been throughout the season. We've all talked about it and how rocky it is, how inexperienced it is. And there's a little bit of shuffling, even though it doesn't seem like there's shuffling. So for that reason, I'm going to cement both the centre-backs as Alderweireld and Dyer. Okay?
I think Alderweireld is injured, so you cannot bring him in. You'll have to...
So is that confirmed, the injury?
Yeah, he's like a doubt. I'm not sure of whether he's like he'll be out of the game, but he's a doubt. So I don't think we can bring him in.
Okay, then let's do a small tweak. I'll go for the right centre back and I'll choose Dyer, and you can take the harder one and pick out the left centre back.
All right. Okay. You've taken Dyer.
Yeah,
I'll take Thiago.
Seriously,
Silva.
Thiago Silva of all the defenders.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving over, I think for the right back, James has been the first choice who's played most games for Chelsea. And with Doherty missing the game, I am not personally impressed by Aurier. Aurier is like that Eric Bailly. He's great on one day, the other day he's just running all over, throwing kicks at all players. Just for that thing to have a little bit of balance, I'm just going to go for Reece James.
All right. All right. Now going to left wing. Left wing. Usually, when you say left wing, you think of Son for Tottenham, and you think of Werner for Chelsea. But I believe this game, Son is not going to play left wing, so it makes my choice very easy, and it'll be Werner.
Okay, so you're saying that Werner. You're putting Werner on the left, so that Son will play on the right.
No, Son is not going to be playing on the left for Tottenham.
That's
why I'm going for Werner. If it was Son who's going to be playing on the left, I would have gone for Son, but I don't think Son will be playing on the left.
Okay, but I think you're right because from the last 6 game weeks, Son has played on the left predominantly, but on the main fixtures, United and City, he's played on the right.
Right, yes.
Okay, so now going back to the defensive midfielders on the left side, I'm going to go with the easy choice, which we discussed last week. I'm going to go with Højbjerg because he's made the difference in the Spurs squad this season. True. So I'm just going to take a simple pick on that and not going to go into too much discussion.
All right. Now going for the other DM, it's very straightforward for me as well. I would go for Kante.
Yeah, that's easy. And I don't think most people are going to dispute over there also.
All right.
Okay. So I think we'll have the right wing to be sorted now. And since you've put one on the left, I definitely think Son needs to feature in this lineup because of his form and tactics. So we'll go with Son on the right. That's the
Okay,
crucial point. The number 10. If you
number
actually
10.
notice, Nirshan, there has been no perfect number 10 for both squads this season.
True, true. There's actually the whole idea of having a number 10 is becoming redundant right now.
Mhm.
Right now, teams want players who can perform a multiple different roles and can take on different responsibilities.
Okay.
So number 10 is a luxury right now, and I think like in another couple of years you won't see a pure number 10. For me, at number 10, I would take Ndombele, Tanguy Ndombele.
Okay. He's been the one who's played there so far and has been
Yeah,
successful and consistent.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think center forward is very straightforward. Both of us will agree on who it should be.
Yeah. There's no dispute over there. He sealed that spot permanently forever. It's been so
Okay,
long
so
since we've seen
if
a striker outright like him, right?
yeah, 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 that's true. I mean, like he's one of the most complete players in the league right now.
Like right now.
And PK, looking at this team, who would you assign to be the manager between Mourinho and Lampard?
See, we love Mourinho, and we all know Mourinho is a better tactician than Lampard. Lampard, we've not seen a tactical game from him yet. Probably the only game that I saw tactical was the semi-final where we played against Chelsea in the FA Cup, and we were all over the pitch, and they were just controlling the entire midfield. And that time he placed it different. So, but just for that reason, I think Mourinho is our team to lead right now. With he's top of the table, everything is in his favor, and he's the better manager. So I'm going to pick Mourinho over Lampard.
All right, all right.
Okay, Neru. So
Yeah,
I'll just recap the squad and then we can move on to the thing. So for the combined 11 of Chelsea and Spurs, I think we've chosen Mendy as the goalkeeper. Region is filling up the left back. Thiago Silva is partnering with Dyer, which is a very odd thing. I really would like to see a game like this, to just say it. James fills up the right spot. I think we've gone for easy ones on the wing backs just to keep it safe and going forward. Højbjerg and Kante are going to be the difference makers in the squad if it ever happens like this. Werner, Ndombele, and Son complete the midfield, and Kane is up front to get the goals, which he always does. Okay, Nirshan, now that we've finalized our combined 11 for the Chelsea versus Spurs game, let's dive into the game. What aspects of the game do you think we should talk about, and what are the key battles that you're looking forward to in this upcoming game?
Both teams coming into the game are playing really well. Chelsea has begun to find their footing, and of course, Spurs are just chugging along. And there are several key player battles that I'm looking forward to, such as Son versus Chilwell, Aurier versus Werner, Reguilon versus Zayt, and Kante versus Kane. If I were to pick one, it would be Kante and Kane for me, because Kane's movement is very integral to how effective Spurs are in front of goal. Him dropping into the midfield pulls opposition defenders out of position and allows one of the wide forwards for Spurs to run into that space and score a goal, which exactly what happened during their first goal against City. Nobody was marking Kane, and because of that, the defenders had to step out, the centre backs had to step out, and that created a space behind them for Son to run into, and he slotted the goal. Well worked. Now, if I were Lampard, I'm pretty sure that I would be looking at all the videos just to gauge an understanding of how Kane moves, and with respect to Kane, how other players move.
Correct.
So, to restrict Kane's movement, I would have Kante manning him.
Okay.
So that if Kante is manning Kane, Chelsea are not forced into a situation where they lose their defensive shape and then eventually end up conceding a goal. And that also allows them to alleviate the pressure on their defense. And I think this is one key battle that I think will decide the outcome of the game. What do you think, Wicket?
I actually believe like what you said is all right, but what I have a feeling here is if Spurs want to make a difference, Son will have to be the decoy, because with Son and Kane being the effective ones, I'm sure Lampard is either going to put a 4-3-3, which is going to counter everything, and he's going to say man mark them with two players, whoever has the ball when it goes to the forward thing. So I think if Son plays on the right, as we said, the one playing on the left is going to be the key one, because when the whole concentration and the whole game is intense in a small area of pocket, it gives chance for the left wing back with Reguilon and somebody who can combine with him to go for a long ball, get behind the defense, and just throw a ball into the penalty box. Because Chelsea have been poor that way also, if you've noticed. All their goals that they conceded earlier on, before this Mendy situation was, where balls have come in and they've not been able to clear it. It's not like somebody worked around the defense and came. So I think that could be the talking point, because we've built up a lot of fixtures in the last couple of game weeks and everything has turned out to be a dud apart from the results of the game. Like, for example, the Liverpool, Leicester and everything. So that's what I think should be the concentration for Spurs to get the result over their traditional tactics against Chelsea this game week.
Could you see Gareth Bale being playing on the left wing?
I really don't.
He's phenomenal.
I don't know, man. For some reason, whatever I've seen, I'm not impressed with Bale. Like, I still thought like he had a lot left in him, because he's been on the bench. So he doesn't have the sharpness, but his quality and talent, he would offer more. But I still haven't seen enough of him to say that he warrants a start on the left.
All right. Before we end our discussion for the game, VK, who's your favorite to win, or who do you think will win?
That's a hard one, but I think like I said earlier, with the momentum and everything going, it's either going to be a hard-fought draw or it's going to be a Spurs win. It's Stamford Bridge, yes, but I just think that Spurs have the momentum. They're going to carry on with it for a while before things maybe go differently.
I'll agree with you. I think because it's at Stamford Bridge, Chelsea will come out on the front foot. Mm-hmm. And because they get into that attacking mode, that will suit Jose Mourinho. And when the other team attacks, that's when you see the best of Spurs and any Jose Mourinho side. So for me and you as well, I guess we finally agreed that Tottenham could win the game. So at least we have a bet on Tottenham winning.
Correct.
More than Chelsea, right?
Exactly. That's the thing.
Okay. Now, moving on to the clash between the two dark horses, West Ham come into the game on a positive note and have 2 wins and 2 draws in the last 5 games. Meanwhile, after having a strong start to the season, Aston Villa seem to have lost the way. They won only 2 and lost the remaining 3 of the last 5 matches. Do you think this game is going to be a turning point for Aston Villa? And what do you think they need to do to actually change the trajectory of the season?
Okay. Actually, here to talk about this, I'll talk to you in specifics about Villa. I am actually not surprised by what's happening. Villa did have a good run. I believe they might have a few games under their belt to get a few results. But eventually they have to fall, man. There's no way Grealish is good enough to carry a team for 38 games in a row over a season, especially with the fixtures so congested this year. So when we go into that aspect, Aston Villa losing 3 games in the last 5 compared to their previous 5 where they had 4 wins or something. I think it's reality more than what is, because we've all been surprised by the top 10 of the table, and Villa have been too reliant on Grealish. Yes, Grealish can pull the strings, but he needs better company up front where the entire squad pitches in. Watkins has done well, but that's all he can do. He's not somebody who's experienced. He's not somebody who has the guidance. He's not somebody who knows what to do. He doesn't know how to create that extra bit of quality which it needs. Should he take a run now? Should he drop back and let another player move forward? So that's where I think Villa will miss out on even getting the top half. And if Villa win, it's again going to be a Grealish masterclass. But otherwise, I really don't see any hope for Villa. What is your take on that fixture, though?
So, since you spoke about Villa, I'll go on to West Ham. Like I said, West Ham are one team that impressed me this season, and they don't look like the punching bag team that we have seen them to be all these years. They are playing good. They're playing with more confidence and more solidity, and that has warranted their current position in the table. And I think they're 8th, if I'm not wrong, in the table right now.
West Ham are 8th, correct? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and also what they have going for them right now is that they are on a run of winnable fixtures all the way until December. And if they can keep winning, not at least winning, but at least getting points over this run of fixtures until Christmas, that will give them a lot of confidence going into the second half of the season where usually most teams actually like fall off, like you
Fall
said.
off.
That's where I believe, even Aston Villa will fall off because they're over reliant on Grealish right
Mm.
now. So coming into this game, despite the potential reintegration of Antonio, who was injured and who has been laid off due to injury, I'm hoping that David Moyes continues to persist with Sebastian Haller
Hello.
because a run of games would do him good and it would also help him adapt to the team better. He's a good striker, but it's just that he's not able to find his feet in that West Ham system. And I think that a run of games will help him.
Help him.
And this will also help the team as a whole because Antonio is 30 and Haller is 26. So you are also setting up Antonio replacement for the future. And so if you can get Haller in the team,
Mm.
you can fill in that Antonio role later on, like after 2 or 3 years, and you don't have to be put in a situation where you're forced into the market to buy a striker. So I'm looking forward to seeing how West Ham will play, whether they will persist with Haller up top, or whether they will bring back Antonio in, or they will tweak their current formation to accommodate both Antonio and Haller. So let's see what happens. Let's see what David Moyes does.
But
The chosen one.
he's no longer the chosen one, unfortunately. But on that point, who do you think? Who do you pick to be the winner of this? What is the result that you think is going to be there for this fixture?
I think it will be West Ham. West Ham for me, again, they have momentum with them. They're playing better. They're not dependent on one person. They have much more as a team for me than Aston Villa do. So how would you, Vike?
I think it'll be one of those average games with a draw, maybe a 1-1 or a 0-0, or worst case, it could go into a 1-0 game. But I don't see it going anything beyond that.
All right, Vike.
And the primary reason for that curse is because I've picked Watkins in my fantasy Premier League.
All right. Well, we've come to the end of our episode. Thank you so much for spending the time, VK, and also big thanks to our audience for taking the time to engage with our content across various platforms. Please do let us know your thoughts and opinions in the comment section below, and also do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us and will enable us to go a long way in this journey of us. Goodbye, stay safe, and take care. Bye.
Peace, buddy.